Vanakkam, Namaste, good evening. The High Commissioner of India, His Excellency Mr. T.S. Tirumurti, revered Swami Sarvagananda, our Swamiji Supriyananda, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor for me to be given this opportunity to speak today on this auspicious occasion of 150th birth anniversary of Sister Nivedita here in Kuala Lumpur. I think my great-grandfather may have been a contemporary of this great lady. During my school days, as part of the school curriculum, in my history book, I remember reading a tiny account of Swami Vivekananda's Western disciple, an Irish woman called Margaret Noble, renamed as Sister Nivedita, who made a significant contribution to India. What exactly was this contribution? I don't think I had much clue about it. A little later, I read a short story written by Sister Nivedita, and this story had a huge impact on me. Would you like to hear what that story was? Yes? Very interesting. Short story. A single mother wanted to send her son to school, a little boy. The school was very far away from the village where she lived, and there was a forest that had to be crossed to reach the school. And she could not accompany the child because she had to work. Then what did she do? She prayed to Lord Krishna to protect her son during the journey to and from the school. And she said to her son, "My child, be brave, don't be scared. But if you do get scared, then just call out to Krishna, and definitely he will come to help you." The child completely believed what his mother said, and he set off to school. But as he neared the forest, he got scared. And then he remembered his mother's words. And he said, "Krishna, Krishna, where are you?" My mother said, "If I call out to Krishna, you will come." And lo and behold, suddenly, out of nowhere, a cowherd boy came running. He walked with the boy, talking to him, joking with him, till they crossed the forest. This continued for several days. One day the mother asked her son as to how he was managing this journey so fearlessly. And then the son narrated the whole thing to his mother. And when she heard this, she just couldn't believe it. And this immensely increased her faith in God manifold. And as a child, when I read this story, you can imagine the impact that would have had on my mind. And I was wondering, who is this person who has written such a powerful story? How powerful her thoughts would be, her imagination would be to come up with such a story. But it was much later that when I read her biography, I was completely blown away. I was amazed at her multifaceted personality, her immense knowledge in so many subjects, including psychology, education, physiology, botany, arts, crafts, history, womanhood, patriotism, politics, religion, and spirituality. Her oratory skills, which kept the audience spellbound during every one of her lectures that covered so many different subjects, like the worship of Kali, the psychology of a child, the ideal of a Hindu woman, women's rights, the unity of India, the impact of Indian spirituality in England, and so on and so forth. The complete way that she surrendered herself to her spiritual guru, Swami Vivekananda, yet retaining her individuality. The severe austerities that she practiced to adapt to the Indian way of life, to understand the people of the country where she had come to work. The manner in which she interacted with the intellectuals in the freedom struggle of India, initially as a link between them, and later her emergence as a political guru who inspired and motivated the youth. Her travels covering the length and breadth of India, meeting people from different walks of life, learning, assimilating everything, influencing the people with her charisma, her knowledge, and her courage. Her conceptualization of dharma to be synonymous with Mother India. And when she addressed the people, she said, if you want to know the real India, you should dream the dreams of Ashoka and Akbar. Patriotism is not learned in the books. It is a feeling that seizes the whole being. It is the breath that we breathe. It is in the air. It is the sound that we hear. If we want to be slaves, do not be the slaves of some unknown Brahman, but be the slaves of Mother India. Do not build altars, build factories and universities. Let us educate the people and let us strive and struggle to acquire knowledge and establish cooperation and organization. Her involvement in education, those were the times when the women were not encouraged to study, to gain education, and she started a school for little girls and for grown-up women, and so her role as a teacher and educator is awe-inspiring. Equally awe-inspiring is her journalism as a writer as well as an editor, and the sheer number of books that she authored totally blows one away. And within the less than 44 years that she lived, her achievements and her contribution to India are really something that we all should learn from. Another personality who astonished me with his achievements during a short lifespan was Mahakavi Subramanya Bharathi, the great Tamil poet. I grew up reading and singing Bharati's beautiful poetic compositions. There is not a single topic that he has not covered, He has written on religion, on politics, philosophy, poems for the children, on womanhood. He was such a rational thinker, and his ideas were revolutionary. He abhorred the caste system. He even performed the sacred thread ceremony for the low caste Hindus to equate them with the high caste Brahmins. And he was a young visionary who loved his motherland and disliked the British rule. So you can imagine what would have happened when two such great personalities met. You see, if I was just blown away reading the life story of Sister Nivedita, definitely whoever came in contact with her in person would have been profoundly impacted. In the year 1905, when Subramanya Bharathi travelled to Benares to attend the Indian National Congress meeting, and on his return stopped at Kolkata in a place called Dum Dum, Bharati came face to face with none other than Sister Nivedita. This was a brief encounter, but quite an interesting one. After the initial exchanges of how are you? Oh, I've heard so much about you. Oh, I'm a great fan of yours. Oh, you've done so much for India and all that. Sister Nivedita asked Bharati, so how is your wife? And why is it that you have not brought your wife along? And Bharati was definitely not expecting this question from Sister Nivedita. So he said, my wife Chellama is fine. Why did I not bring her along? You see, in our Indian tradition, the women do not step out of the house with the men, and anyway, they are not intelligent enough to understand such complicated matters like politics. What will she do in this Indian National Congress meeting? Oops. Sister Nivedita was completely taken aback by this answer. She did not expect a revolutionary, a rational thinker like Bharati to give such an answer. She said, she was so enraged. She said, Bharati, what are you saying? How can one half of the society dream of winning freedom when it enslaves the other half? Men should treat women with dignity. She explained the greatness of women to Bharati, and she made him realize that women are free beings like men, and men and women should be treated as equals. She rekindled the fire of patriotism in Bharati. Subramanya Bharati returned to Tamil Nadu with renewed vigor to fight for the freedom of his country and to work for the emancipation of women of his nation. Bharati's wife Chellama was the first person who noticed the change in her husband. Why? Because she directly benefited from it. After his return, Bharati suddenly started showing so much respect for Chellama. She became his heroine. He literally started worshipping her. And then he took her out for walks. Something completely unheard of. Much to the chagrin of the neighborhood. They were living in this agraharam where all the high caste Brahmins live, and all the mamas and mamis of the agraharam, and they said, Ayuyo, abacharo, abacharo, just see, Bharati is taking Chellama out for a walk. What is this world coming to? We might think that this is something ridiculous, but in those days it wasn't. a very serious offense. Bharati did not stop at giving respect to his wife alone. He had determined to fight for the freedom of all the women. So he postulated 10 commandments for the freedom of women, which are as follows. Girls must not be married before they attain the age of puberty. They should not be compelled to marry a man whom they do not fancy. After marriage, if the women wish to stay away from their husbands, they should not be put to shame on that score. After marriage, if the husband passes away, the woman should be allowed to remarry. But there are some women who are not interested in getting married. So, nobody should force them to marry, so they should be allowed to be independent. And all women should get equal share in the ancestral property. And the condition that women should not associate with or speak to a man other than her husband should be removed, because it is born out of sheer fear and jealousy. And all women should have the right for higher education in all fields of knowledge, like men. And if the women are qualified enough to get a government job, law should not prevent this. Well, at that time, you see, India was not independent. So he said the last commandment is that, at this time, we cannot plead for the women to get jobs in the government because even the men do not have it. However, if India were to get independence, which will happen very soon, the women should have equal rights, equal share in the government. So these were the 10 commandments postulated by Bharati for the women. And he wrote several poems in praise of women. Bharati, Pudumai Pen, Pen Vidudalai, Pengal Valga, and all. And with full force, he plunged into the freedom struggle. He declared Sister Nivedita as his political guru because he was immensely impressed with her and highly influenced by her ideas. She had changed him so much. He dedicated his 2 books, Swadesha Geetangal and Janmabhoomi, to Sister Nivedita. Swadesha Geetangal is a compilation of all the patriotic songs and poems that he wrote in praise of India, of course. And Janmabhoomi is a compilation of poems in praise of Tamil Nadu, the land of his birth. Bharati was frustrated when he looked at the attitude of the people who were hypocrites. In the year 1906, there was flood and famine in East Bengal, and the people were severely affected. But the people in other parts of India were not affected by it. They were not affected, which means they knew about it, they had heard about it, they understood it, but they did not react, which means they did not take any action. So Bharati expressed the anger in a poetic form. And he said, you talk about dishonesty in others and you yourself are not honest. You just talk, you attend meetings and shout slogans, and then you forget the whole purpose of the meeting. And you just wait for miracles to happen and just talk about Swadeshi movement. Oh, the salt satyagraha, our own industries, we must make in India. But are you taking any action for it? You see people of India dying of starvation. because of flood, because of famine. And you do nothing. What do? Oh, you just shout slogans of Vande Mataram. Shall I sing to you the poem? If you say yes, I will. நெஞ்சில் உரமுமின்றி நேர்மை திறமுமின்றி வஞ்சனை சொல்வாரடி கிளியே வாய் சொல்லில் வீரரடி கிளியே வாய் சொல்லில் வீரரடி கூட்டத்தில் கூடி நின்று கூவி பீதற்றலன்றி நாட்டத்தில் கொள்ளாரடி கிளியே நாளில் மரபாரடி கிளியே நாளில் மரபாரடி உப்பென்றும் சீனி என்றும் உள்நாட்டு சேலை என்றும் செப்பி தெரிவாரடி கிளியே செய்வதறியாரடி கிளியே செய்வதறியாரடி யந்திர சாலை என்பர் எங்கள் துணிகள் என்பர் மந்திரத்தாலே எங்கும் கிளியே மாங்கனி வீழ்வதுண்டோ பஞ்சத்தும் நோய்களிலும் பாரதர் புழுக்கள் போல் துஞ்சத்தம் கண்ணால் கண்டும் கிளியே சோம்பி கிடப்பாரடி கிளியே சோம்பி கிடப்பாரடி தாயை கொல்லும் பஞ்சத்தை தடுக்க முயற்சியோரார் வாயை திறந்து சும்மா கிளியே வந்தே மாதரம் என்பார். Such powerful lines. Every time I sing this, I get so emotional. Sister Nivedita actually did a lot of work during this flood and famine. She gave lectures in several places, collected as much money as she could, and made arrangement to feed 5,000 people every third day. And she herself traveled in a boat against the current. It was flood, you see, carrying the necessary items to supply to the people who were in dire need. So Bharathi was immensely impressed with her, and he wrote a beautiful poem in praise of Sister Nivedita. I would like to conclude my speech with this beautiful poem which Bharathi wrote. அருளுக்கு நிவேதனமாய் அன்பினுக்கோர் கோயிலாய் அடியேன் நெஞ்சில் இருளுக்கு ஞாயிறாய் எமதுயிர் நாடாம் பயிர்க்கு மழையாய் இங்கு பொருளுக்கு வழியறியா வறிஞர்க்கு பெரும் பொருளாய் புன்மை தாதச் சுருளுக்கு நெருப்பாகி விளங்கிய தாய் நிவேதிதையை தொழுது நிற்பேன். To those who have not understood what it means, I shall now translate it in English. She dedicated herself to affection and kindness. She was a temple for compassion. In my heart, she remained as a sun to darkness. She arrived in India our venerable land, like showers to the prosperous crops. She came as wealth to the poor and downtrodden, who were unaware of how to make both ends meet. And she flamed like fire to the vulgar wordy reels of the hard-hearted landlords. To that great Mother Nivedita, I pay my obeisance. I conclude saying, Sister Nivedita was a super duper woman, wasn't she? Thank you.